Whenever you start a conversation about political reform, especially with something as big and ancient as the House of Lords, there's this cynicism that just settles over the room. You know the feeling I'm talking
Well,
about.
absolutely. It feels like a fantasy, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's that little voice in your head that says, sure, this sounds great in a textbook, but in the real world, it's impossible.
We treat the British Constitution like it's this delicate Jenga tower. You know, if you pull out one block, the whole thing is just going to collapse.
So we just stare at it and complain.
Exactly. We don't touch it.
Right. And we convince ourselves the problem is just too big or too historical or just too British to ever really solve.
Mm.
But today, our mission is to try and dismantle that skepticism. We're going to look outside the UK's borders and see if anyone anywhere has actually cracked the code on balancing ethics, long-term judgment, and, day-to-day politics.
And the answer, spoiler alert, is a reassuring yes. We're digging into a piece of research called Global Blueprints for Reforming the House of Lords, specifically a section that just asks us to rethink the Lords.
Okay.
And it argues that our paralysis, it comes from a lack of imagination, not a lack of actual solutions.
The premise here sounds really interesting. It seems like the research is saying we have a bad case of exceptionalism. We look at the House of Lords, this weird mix of bishops and experts and political appointees, and we just assume our mess is completely unique so nobody else can teach us anything.
Which is such a dangerous mindset. I mean, if you think your illness is unique, you're not going to take the medicine that's working for everyone else.
Right.
The reality is that every democracy faces the same core questions. How do you check the government's power? How do you think long-term in a world that's obsessed with the short-term? How do you get real expertise into a system that's, well, basically a popularity contest?
So the mission for this deep dive isn't to find a country that has a carbon copy of the House of Lords. We're not looking for a House of Lords 2.0.
No, not at all. We're looking for what the source calls partial solutions. The idea is that while no single country has a perfect blueprint, different nations have solved specific parts of the puzzle.
Okay, so they've figured out how to do the things we want the Lords to do.
Precisely. But they've built specific, dedicated engines for each of those jobs.
Let's unpack that then. I think we have 3 stops on our tour: Germany, France, and Ireland.
That's right.
And each one tackles a different function that we try to cram into the House of Lords. So first up, Germany and this idea of the power of advice.
This brings us to the Deutscher Ethikrat, the German Ethics Council. Now, this is a fascinating beast because it tackles one of the biggest complaints about modern politics, that it's just too shallow. It can't handle complex moral questions.
Oh, you mean like AI regulation, bioethics, genetic editing?
Yeah.
All the really heavy stuff.
Exactly. The stuff that gets reduced to a 3-word slogan in an election. The German Ethics Council is a permanent body that's designed to handle that weight.
And it's made up of experts.
It's pluralistic. So you have scientists, theologians, philosophers, lawyers, people who actually understand the nuance. But, and here's the bit that trips people up, it is explicitly advisory.
See, that's where the skeptic in me immediately wakes up. In the UK, when we hear advisory body, we think useless. We're obsessed with teeth. We think if a body can't veto a law, if it can't block the government, then it's just a glorified debating society. So why should we care?
That's the intuitive reaction. I get it. But it totally misses the mechanism of influence here. This body has what we call epistemic authority.
Meaning?
Its power doesn't come from forcing a vote. It comes from the fact that its reasoning is better than everyone else's, and everybody knows it.
So it's about the quality of the argument, not the volume of the shout.
Precisely. The research says its job is to make ethical reasoning visible, structured, and cumulative. Now, think about how we handle a complex bill here. Something happens, the press goes wild, Parliament has a panic attack.
And we rush through a debate. It's totally reactive.
It's episodic. And it's incredibly partisan. If the blue team says one thing, the red team has to say the opposite, and all the actual detail just gets lost.
Of course.
The German model bypasses that. Because the council is permanent, it builds this library of reasoning over years. So when the German parliament, the Bundestag, finally sits down to write a law, they're not starting from scratch.
They've got a report on their desk already.
A report that lays out the whole ethical landscape, the trade-offs, the consensus of the country's best minds. It gives the politicians, for want of a better word, intellectual cover.
Oh, that's a great way of putting it. So a politician could say, look, I'm voting for this difficult thing, not because I want to, but because the Ethics Council has explained why it's necessary.
Yes. It separates the reasoning, which is the hard work, from the deciding, which is the political work.
And this connects directly to one of the justifications for the House of Lords, that it has experts. But their expertise gets drowned out by all the politics.
And because they do have legislative power, the government just sees them as an obstacle, as an enemy. The German model suggests something really interesting.
What's that?
That if you actually want expertise to influence lawmaking, you might be more powerful without the veto. Take away the threat of obstruction, and the government is much more likely to listen.
That is so counterintuitive. To be more influential, you might need fewer teeth, but a much louder, clearer voice.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's the wise advisor model. Now let's head west to France. This is a different flavor entirely.
It is. France gives us the Constitutional Council. If Germany is about ethics, France is about the rules of the game.
And the source material highlights this phrase, the designed pause. I love that. It sounds less like constitutional law and more like something a therapist would recommend.
It's a mechanism to cool the whole machine down. I mean, modern politics is hot. It's fast. The electorate is angry. The news cycle is screaming. And politicians feel this immense pressure to do something right now.
And that heat often produces terrible, rushed laws.
Laws that violate fundamental principles. We've seen it happen. A crisis hits, a law gets passed in 48 hours, and 2 years later, the courts are striking it down because it was a mess. The French Constitutional Council is the brake pedal. It reviews legislation to check if it aligns with long-term constitutional principles. And crucially, it sits completely outside electoral politics. The members have fixed terms. They are not running for re-election.
But doesn't that raise the undemocratic flag all over again? You have unelected people telling an elected government to stop?
It's a tension, for sure. But the research argues that their authority comes from restraint rather than activism. They're not trying to write the laws. They're not debating the policy. They are simply asking one question.
Does this law break the rules we all agreed on?
Exactly that. It's the referee metaphor. The ref doesn't kick the ball, but they'll blow the whistle if there's a foul.
And that design pause isn't just about blocking bad laws, is it?
No, it's about forcing justification. If the government wants to do something that pushes the boundaries, the council makes them show their work. You can't just do it because you have the votes. You have to prove it's constitutional.
It changes the whole incentive structure.
Yeah.
If you know the referee is watching, you play a cleaner game.
You do. And in the UK, the House of Lords tries to be this constitutional guardian. It tries to say, hang on, this is a bad idea. But because it's full of political appointees, the government just turns around and says, you're just blocking our mandate.
The message gets lost because the messenger is compromised.
Whereas the French Council works because it has one clear job: protect the Constitution. It isn't trying to be a legislature at the same time. Clearer function, stronger legitimacy.
Okay, so we've got Germany's Library of Wisdom and France's constitutional break. Both of those are pretty elite institutions, full of professors and judges.
They are.
But the other big criticism of the House of Lords is that it's just a club for the privileged, totally disconnected from real people.
Which brings us to Ireland, and maybe the most radical experiment of the three: the citizens' assemblies.
This is the one that really challenges how we think about democracy, right? Germany and France rely on better elites. Ireland just turned to, well, random people.
Sortition. It's an ancient Greek idea. They gathered a representative sample of the population, nurses, truck drivers, teachers, retirees, and put them in a room to discuss huge, controversial issues.
We're talking about things like abortion rights, climate change.
The third rails of politics, the issues that professional politicians were terrified to touch because they were just too polarizing.
And the assumption would be you put 99 random people in a room to talk about something that divisive, and it's just going to be a shouting match.
Complete chaos, what the source calls moral theater. You'd expect it to look like Twitter come to life.
But that's not what happened.
The exact opposite. The concept here is deliberation without drama. It turns out, when you take normal people, you remove the party whip, you turn off the cameras, and you take away the need to win an election, they behave differently. They actually listen.
They engage with the evidence instead of just attacking the other side.
Yes, they properly struggle with the trade-offs. The report says these assemblies created a space for slow, deliberate discussion of value-laden questions. They did the hard work of finding a consensus that the politicians couldn't.
But, and this is the key question again, they didn't pass the law themselves.
No, and this is vital. It's that separation of functions again. The assembly reasoned, but the parliament decided.
Yeah.
The assembly produced a report saying, here's what a representative group of informed citizens thinks we should do. And then parliament took that cover and held the vote. It completely de-risked the politics for them.
So it solves the trust problem, too. If a politician tells you something is a good idea, you're skeptical.
But if a group of people who look like you and earn what you earn say, hey, we looked at all the data and this is the best path forward, you're much more likely to trust it.
Okay, so we've looked at the blueprints. Germany, the expert advisor; France, the constitutional guardian; Ireland, the voice of the people. Now we have to turn the mirror on ourselves. The source refers to our situation as the UK anomaly.
Which is a polite academic way of saying we are doing it all wrong.
The word anomaly implies we're the odd ones out here.
And we are. The source points out that most countries do not try to cram all these different functions into a single institution. They get that ethical advice and constitutional protection are different jobs that need different tools.
And the UK just says, hold my beer, I'm going to do it all in one room.
Chuckles. Essentially, yes. We treat the House of Lords as an ethical and constitutional all-purpose adapter.
I love that metaphor. It's like one of those universal travel plugs from the airport. It's got 12 different prongs. It's heavy. It sparks when you plug it in, and then it falls out of the wall.
That is the House of Lords in a nutshell. We want it to be the German Ethics Council, so we put some experts in. We want it to be the French Constitutional Council, so we ask it to check the government. We want it to represent the UK, so we talk about regional appointments.
But because it's trying to be everything it
It
wants.
does everything implicitly and awkwardly. It's bad at being representative because it's unelected. It's bad at being a constitutional guard because the government can just threaten to abolish it. And it's bad at giving expert advice because the experts get drowned out.
It's a Swiss Army knife where all the blades are blunt.
And that explains the paralysis we started with. The reason we can't fix the Lords is that we're trying to fix a muddle. We're arguing about composition. Should they be elected, appointed, without ever agreeing on the function?
So bringing it all back to our mission. That fear that reform is some big leap into the unknown. It's actually backwards. The unknown is what we're doing right now.
Exactly. The source argues reform isn't a leap into the dark. It's a leap into clarity. All the components we need, they already exist. Structured ethical reasoning.
Germany has it.
Long-term advisory bodies.
France has it.
Deliberative assemblies with real people.
Ireland has it. We don't need to invent new colors. We just need to paint a new picture.
We need to synthesize. The proposal isn't about copying Germany or France. It's about asking, how can we build a second chamber that separates these functions clearly?
So you could imagine a House of Lords where there's a specific statutory ethics committee, like the German one, and its reports have to be debated by the Commons.
Yes. Or a constitutional committee that has the specific power to demand that design pause. Not to block the government forever, but to force that justification.
Or even integrating the Irish model. Imagine if part of the chamber wasn't Lords at all, but a rotating panel of citizens chosen by lottery to review long-term issues.
That's the vision. You create a body that sits alongside the Commons, not above it. It's not competing on who has the most votes.
It's competing on who has the best arguments.
Right.
That phrase, alongside, not above, that really solves the gridlock fear, doesn't it? If the second chamber isn't trying to be a mini-Commons, if it's explicitly a senative advice, then the elected MPs don't need to feel threatened.
Not at all. You leave the final decision, the actual yes or no vote, with the elected Commons. That preserves democracy. But you make sure that before they vote, they've been advised and warned and informed by a body that's actually designed to do that job well.
It seems so obvious when you lay it out like that. We've been trapped in this binary elected versus unelected debate for so long.
But the international evidence shows us that legitimacy comes in different flavors. You can have legitimacy through expertise or through fairness and process. You don't always need a ballot box to have a valid voice in a democracy.
So to wrap up, we started by asking if reform was just a fantasy. And we found that sticking with the status quo is the real fantasy.
The world has moved on, and the UK is still holding on to this medieval multi-tool in a digital age. We're trying to open a PDS with a chisel.
It's not the right tool for the job.
It isn't. But the hopeful message here is that a realistic, coherent version of a second chamber is totally possible. The blueprints are literally sitting right there on the table.
We just need the political imagination to pick them up.
And maybe the bravery to admit that we don't have to be exceptional all the time. We can learn from our neighbors. We can take the best of the designed pause, the visible reasoning, and the public deliberation, and build something that actually works for the UK.
That feels like a much more exciting prospect than just shuffling the pieces around on the same old board. Feels like, well, actual architecture.
It does, building for the future, not just patching up the past.
I want to leave you with that thought. The next time you hear a news story about the House of Lords, about a bill being blocked or a scandal over appointments, don't just roll your eyes. Ask yourself, which function failed here? Was it the ethics, the constitutional guardrail, the public voice?
And just remember that the solutions are out there, ready to be used.
Thank you so much for guiding us through this. It's really changed my perspective on what's possible.
My pleasure. It's always good to look at what's happening beyond our own shores.
And thank you for listening. If you want to dive deeper, the link to Global Blueprints for Reforming the House of Lords is in the show notes. It is a dense read, but if this is your thing, it's a goldmine. Until next time, keep digging deep.